spanning anyone born from the early 80s to the late 90s, or does it?
Yeah, a new report says 69% of young people don't think the term represents them fairly, and more than a third say they don't even know what the term means. So is the term dead? Well, joining us now are actress and illustrator Sukey Willis and the founder and creative officer of youth agency ZAK. Good morning to you both. So, Sukey, you're 19, is that right?
Yeah.
So you are officially classed as a millennial. Just define what a millennial is.
What, to me? Or because I can't really speak on a whole generation. So for me, a millennial is... I don't identify with the term, so I can't really have a say in it. I think it's someone born from 1980 to 1999, but that's almost 2 decades worth of people. That's a lot of people to class as one thing. I think it's really silly and stupid.
Are you offended by the term?
I wouldn't say offended, but talking to a lot of friends, they consider it a slur. There's no positive connotations to the word millennial.
What do you consider a slur? What is it that you don't identify with, issues with?
I think it's used by the older generation to create divides. I think there's negative connotations to it that, you know, we're lazy, we don't have opinions on political matters, we just sit on our phones all day and do nothing. I think that's where there's a problem. Just because I wear what I want and I like, you know, the internet and memes and YouTube, it doesn't mean that I don't have anything to say.
Matt, what do you think? Do you understand those criticisms? Can you sort of see how perhaps not all young people think that this is a good term?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I'm actually on Sukey's side here. You know, this is this term was coined in a book in 1991, and the guys that actually coined it, you know, they posit that it runs from the age of 13 up to kind of 35, 36. I think the accepted wisdom is that it's around sort of 18 or 19 to about 35, and you cannot generalise a group of people, as Sukey says, that spans almost 2 decades, but not only just in age, in their outlook, in kind of, you know, their cultural sort of status. You know, you can't assign the same name and therefore sort of characteristics, I guess, to, you know, a tech millionaire from Shanghai and a single parent from Swindon.
Do you think we're just getting too bogged down in terms? Do you think it's almost like every generation we have to give a name, whether it's Generation X, Generation Y, Millennials? I mean, Baby Boomers was the sort of first one, and there was something sensible about that because it actually meant something.
Yeah, and I think Millennial did mean something, and it does mean something if all you're going to do is classify, you know, when someone was born.
Yes.
When you start to extrapolate out and start to assign characteristics and general traits to those people, you're sailing on rough waters there.
So then we get into the area of your age range, your age group, this millennial 2 decades, feeling sort of patronised by the media for labelling you in the first place.
Yeah. I think my generation, I think we feel misunderstood, and I think there's a lot going on in our generation. I think there's a lot of angst and unrest and frustration that this older generation just doesn't seem to be connected.
All young people think that. I remember thinking that when I was a teenager, that nobody understood me.
Well, do you know, there is actually some science.
All right.
Way back.
But there is some science there. We spoke to a neuropsychologist, and there is a science behind the fact that there's some enduring traits of youth that, you know, whether you're sort of 25 now or 2,000 years ago, the brain is wired differently. The prefrontal cortex, which is the part that's there around decision making, doesn't fully develop until the mid to late 20s. So there are some things that will always be constant because they're helpful to society. Things like risk, novelty, and a sense of kind of belonging. But, you know, even 10 or 20 years ago, belonging was about tribalism, that I want to be a skater kid, I want to be an emo, a goth, or an indie. Now it's not. It's about diversity. It's like belonging in a certain group of people who share the same vision and the same outlook and the same sense of diversity. So whilst there are some things that are enduring, and you really need to understand the fixed traits, you need to understand the cultural effects on youth as well.
You know that viral video by that author, motivational speaker, Simon Sinek, and there was a big video, loads of views on Facebook, and he was essentially talking about millennials, saying that they feel they deserve so much, they were given medals for losing, that they could be quite lazy, entitled.
Yeah.
Yep, Was there any truth in any of this? Which wasn't necessarily, he wasn't necessarily just blaming young people, he was kind of blaming parents as well for making them feel that they deserve anything, and they could have anything that they wanted. Was there a little bit of truth in it?
I don't think so. I think is really frustrated with everything. The baby boomers came in, stole all of the free education, and now they expect us to fix the economy. I think that's ridiculous. I think, I think people are tired and fed up and just infuriated.
How would you like to be, if a label has to be attached to your generation, what label would you like it to be?
To my generation, to me, I can't speak for my generation. There's a big number of people in my generation. For me, I'd just like to be known as Sukey, to be honest. I was born in 1997. I like skating. I like my friends. That's me. I'm not a millennial. I so happen to grow up with the internet.
Would you say there's nothing that characterises your generation then?
I think we're passionate. I think we're progressive. I think we're caring and understanding. I think, there's a lot going on in this generation. I think there are a lot of positives, and people seem to be overlooking that.
Brilliant. You're a marketing guy. The progressives. It's got a ring to it, hasn't it?
We're actually calling it the selfhood generation, which means about this sense of individuality.
Okay.
So whilst we are assigning it,
Can't pin these young guys in a box.
Absolutely. Too fast-moving, too dynamic, too unpredictable. This to us is about the rise of the individual.
Fascinating, isn't it? I mean, it is a really interesting debate. So what do you think will be the next millennials? What will the next generation be called?
Well, as I said, there's always going to be some enduring traits of youth, right? There's always going to be those kind of fixed. And it's the way culture changes is going to define the next generation. And culture and accessibility to culture. Your smartphone means that you can access culture, but you can publish it and get involved. And I think that's what's going to define it. I don't think it'll be a name that defines it. I don't even think it'll be when you're born between a certain time. This thing now is a kind of a seamless acceleration towards kind of, technology, access, and kind of, a feeling of kind of individuality, I guess.
Well, for what it's worth, I don't think millennials sound like a negative thing. I wouldn't mind being a millennial. Sadly, I'm too old.
Well, I got called a baby boomer earlier, which I was grossly offended by.
You're a millennial in my eyes.
Yeah. Matt, Sukey, fascinating. Thank you very much indeed for that. A really good discussion. Appreciate your time. Cheers.
Great.
So, let's speak to Adam Bolton. I think he'll agree he's not a millennial, but he is young at heart. What have you got on all that politics, Adam?
Well, I'll tell you